Alright, folks, strap in and hit that subscribe button. Today, we're not just talking about history. We're going to crawl inside one of the most terrifying, claustrophobic, and strangely fascinating machines ever built. We're going into the belly of the beast, the German U-boat. And I want to answer a question that seems too simple, too mundane for the epic scale of the Battle of the Atlantic. A question that gets to the heart of what it meant to be human in that metal hell. What did they eat? Forget the Hollywood cliches of moldy bread and spoiled meat. The real story of the U-boat galley is a tale of staggering logistics, psychological warfare, and a desperate, losing battle against nature itself. It's a story where a single loaf of bread tells you everything about the Third Reich's ambition and its fatal flaws. This isn't just a menu. This is a window into the mind of Admiral Dönitz and his Grey Wolves. Stay with me because the details will shock you. Music shifts to something more analytical but still tense. Let's set the stage. It's 1942. The world is on fire. And in the captured French port of Lorient, a Type 7C U-boat is being loaded for a patrol that could last 12 weeks. 12 weeks in a steel tube with 44 other men, where the air is thick with the stench of diesel, sweat, and fear. Now picture this loading dock. You'd expect crates of military rations, right? Hardtack, canned slop, the bare minimum. But you'd be dead wrong. What goes aboard is nothing short of a European culinary tour, plundered from a conquered continent. This is our first crucial point, and it's rooted in brutal economics. After the fall of France, Norway, the Low Countries, Nazi Germany wasn't just a nation at war. It was a parasitic empire. And the U-boat arm, the prized weapon meant to strangle Britain, got the lion's share of the spoils. So onto that U-boat went fresh sides of pork and beef from Danish and French farms, waxy wheels of Dutch Edam and Gouda cheese, oranges and lemons from Italy and Spain, vital, priceless weapons against scurvy, Portuguese sardines and olive oil, bought from neutral fascist allies, real butter, jars of honey, actual coffee beans, and Swiss chocolate. Think about the message this sent. To a young sailor from Hamburg or Kiel, this wasn't just food. It was a statement. You are the elite. The Reich provides for its best. We have mastered Europe, and we feast on its bounty. For the first 2 weeks at sea, a U-boat crew ate better than most civilians in Berlin or London. It was a psychological masterstroke, a way to bolster morale before the inevitable descent into hell. But hell, in this case, had a very specific smell. And it wasn't just the diesel. The true, unshakable enemy of the U-boat gourmet wasn't the British destroyer. It was physics, condensation. Inside that cramped hull, with 50 men breathing, cooking, and sweating, the humidity soared to near-tropical levels. Moisture dripped from cold steel ceilings, soaking everything. And in this warm, wet petri dish, that magnificent French bread transformed. It grew a coat, a thick, white, fuzzy coat of mold. The crews, with the dark humor of men living on borrowed time, called these loaves rabbits. Kaninchen, because after a week or two, they looked like small, furry white animals hanging in their storage nets. This brings us to the million Reichsmark question. The question that kept me up researching. The obvious, logical solution. Why in God's name didn't they just take hardtack? Ship's biscuit? The Royal Navy had used it for centuries. It's immortal. It doesn't mold. The answer reveals the German military mind at its most calculating, and its most tragically human. The High Command knew hardtack was a last resort. Nutritionally, it was barren. Psychologically, it was a killer. Imagine. You're depth-charged for 12 hours, your ears ringing, your nerves shredded. You finally get to the mess, and your reward is a tooth-breaking, bland slab of baked flour. It demoralizes. It ruins digestion. It screams of desperation. So they chose the harder path. They chose fresh bread, knowing it would rot, because for those precious initial weeks, it preserved something more fragile than food. It preserved a sense of normalcy, a link to home. The smell of fresh bread in the morning was a tiny rebellion against the all-consuming reality of the war outside the pressure hull. But they weren't stupid. They had a backup plan, and it's where German engineering met the kitchen. The Dosenbrot, canned bread. hold up a visual of the cylindrical canned bread tin. This was ingenuity born of necessity. Pre-sliced rye bread, sealed airtight in a tall, slender tin, could last for months. British Captain Eric Monckton, a prisoner aboard U-163, wrote about it after the war. He called it only a little dry, a testament to its quality. So the bread strategy was a two-tiered system. Devour the fresh rabbits first in a race against mold, then meticulously ration the reliable, if boring, canned bread for the long, grim final month of the patrol. This logistical dance was choreographed by two of the most important men on board, after the captain. The navigation officer who calculated the tons of food needed, and the smutch, the cook. That nickname, by the way, loosely translates to grease monkey or smudge. It was a term of rough affection. A good smudge wasn't just a cook. He was an alchemist, a therapist, and a magician. His galley was a closet-sized space with an electric hot plate. From it, he was expected to conjure morale. Let's look at a real menu. This is from the log of U-93, 4th week of patrol, January 1942. Just listen to this. Monday lunch, lentil soup with sausages, stewed plums. Wednesday dinner, tea, butter, bread, ox tongue, sausage, cheese. Sunday lunch, roast pork, red cabbage, strawberries and cream. Strawberries and cream. On a submarine, in the middle of the Atlantic winter. Let that sink in. It's almost absurd. But this is where the story turns. Because for all the planning, all the stolen delicacies, the system was fighting a losing war against time, distance, and Allied intelligence. As the war dragged on, the safe havens shrunk. The milch queue, the Type 14 supply U-boats or milk cows, were marvels. They had onboard bakeries. They could replenish fresh bread at sea in a secret midnight rendezvous. But one by one, Allied codebreakers at Bletchley Park and hunter-killer groups tracked them down and sent them to the bottom. The final months of a patrol became a culinary and psychological horror show. The fresh food was long gone. Now it was a monotony of canned labscouse, a mishmash of corned beef, potatoes, and pickled beetroot. The remaining vegetables swam in a slime of decay. The rabbits had been shaved and eaten long ago, and now it was just the dry, uninspiring canned bread. The coffee was ersatz, made from barley and acorns. The smells, rancid butter, mold, diesel, the never-cleaned head, all fused into one pervasive, inescapable stench that seeped into the men's skin and hair. And this right here is the ultimate analysis. The food tells the entire strategic story. 1940 to 42, the feast, reflecting Nazi peak power, continental plunder, and arrogant confidence. 1943 onward, the famine, reflecting lost supply lines, broken codes, Allied technological dominance, and the slow, suffocating collapse of the entire U-boat campaign. The dinner table on U-556 in April of 1943 was a forecast of the fall of Berlin in 1945. You could taste the defeat in every bland, canned mouthful. So what did Dönitz's gray wolves eat? They ate the dream of a quick victory. Then they ate the grim reality of a protracted total war. They ate the bounty of Europe, and then they ate the consequences of their own regime's overreach. That galley was a microcosm of the Third Reich itself. Initially impressive, logically ruthless, but fundamentally rotten from the inside, unable to preserve its own fragile illusions against the relentless pressure of reality. They weren't just fighting the Royal Navy. They were fighting biology. They were fighting entropy. And in the end, in the cold, dark, smelly silence of their steel coffin, with the depth charges closing in, even the last can of bread couldn't save them. That's the real story. It's not about food. It's about what happens to men when the last comforts are stripped away, and all that's left is the mission and the medal. What's your take? Could you have survived on the rabbit diet? Let's dive deep into the comments. I read every single one. And if this kind of gritty human history fascinates you, if you want more stories that tear the lid off the past, you know what to do. Subscribe. Hit that bell. Because next time we're going somewhere even darker. Until then, stay curious.